In the world of Hollywood, movies get greenlit and redlit. They get remade and rebooted. But we are the ideal. I'm Sam Gasch, and you are listening to Ideal Remake. Thank you for listening to Ideal Remake. We take movies that either have been, will be, or should be remade and talk about what the ideal version of that remake would be. Today, we're remaking High Spirits, which means that we know that no respectable ghost would live in California. So, Chris, is High Spirits a movie that has been, will be, or should be remade?
It has not been. As far as I know, it will not be, but I think that it should be.
Yeah, I love it. So I'm going to start with this. How did you first hear of this movie?
So I'm struggling to remember the specific details of how I first saw this movie, but so this came out in 1988, and in 1989, my family and I moved to Germany, military. So we were stationed in Germany, and we had like AFN, the Armed Forces Network, to watch in English, and that was it. And I didn't learn German because I'm American. While we were there, we would go to the movie, the video store like all the time. And I'm pretty sure I first rented High Spirits there when I was like 8. And I watched it there. And then when we came back to the States, I would spend summers like with my grandma in Oklahoma and with all my little cousins, and a couple big cousins. But we would go to the Blockbuster all the time, and we rented a number of movies like over and over again. We would rent like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 over and over and over again, and Hocus Pocus over and over again. And High Spirits is one of the ones that we rented over and over again. And after we stopped renting it from the Blockbuster, I think by then it was like in constant rotation on like TBS Superstation. So I've seen this movie so many times. And like since then, since like I went to college and moved on and got a life and don't have basic cable anymore, like when this comes across my path, I'll watch it again, but that only happens every couple of years. Like the most recent time I saw it, like the most recent it popped up is it was a trailer or something for like one of the last Ideal Remake episodes. And then YouTube suggested, hey, you should watch High Spirits. And I was like, oh, wow, I guess I have to.
If YouTube thinks so, I simply must.
Thanks, algorithm. Algorithm really knows me.
That's funny. I'd never heard of this movie before you recommended it, and then you like posted like, and then you were like, well, I just watched High Spirits, and honestly, this movie is perfect for this show.
Yeah,
because it's obscure, but it's like it's got an amazing cast.
Yeah, Peter O'Toole.
Peter O'Toole.
Granted, I think this was the time in his career when he was doing the Nicolas Cage thing and just said yes to everything. There's a number of
great
lesser-known Peter O'Toole films.
I'm cool with it. So, sorry, before we get any further, I'm always bad at like doing this. Hey, Chris, do you want to talk about yourself for a little bit so that people know who you are?
Do I want to talk about myself for a little bit? Sam.
You're a returning guest after having previously come on to remake Logan's Run, but
that's true, and it was such a successful episode. Go us! I'm Chris O'Connor. You can find me on Twitter very stupidly under my full name, Chris.O'ConnorIV at Chris.O'ConnorIV, so I can never disassociate any of my terrible tweets from my full legal name because I'm stupid. And I'm also one of the co-hosts on Dueling Genres Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Minute, where we have covered the 1990 TMNT and then TMNT 2, The Secret of the Ooze, 1 minute at a time, like all the way through. And as of recording this with you, we are just now working our way up to recording the third Ninja Turtles movie, which there's a little trepidation on our part, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it because people love Ninja Turtles, and we love Ninja Turtles. And we owe it to all the people who love Ninja Turtles to talk about the third live-action Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie 1 minute at a time. Anyway.
I'm sure it's going to be fine. All right, great.
It's going to be great.
Yeah. So I watched this movie for the first time 2 nights ago. Yeah, 2 nights ago. Yep. And I was going to, like, I almost messaged you while I was watching this, but this movie burned through plot so fast.
So fast.
Like, it basically is like, it's 3 different plots, each of which could be their own separate movie.
Absolutely.
The first plot, well, the mortgage on this castle is going to shut us down. The only thing we have to do is fake that it's haunted in order to lure in unsuspecting tourists in order to
A
earn money
reverse
to stay there.
Scooby-Doo.
A reverse. I don't think that's a reverse Scooby-Doo. I think that's just a Scooby-Doo.
Okay, it is just a Scooby-Doo. But we're on the ghost's side.
Yes. So then that fails, but it angers the real ghosts that haunting this castle. And so then we have another bit of like, oh, now this castle's really haunted, and we're going through that whole process. Oh no. And then we get to this other point where it turns out two of the ghosts are this like couple where the husband killed her on their wedding night. Oof. And then, as far as I can tell, lived a full life and then died peacefully in his sleep. But now also is a ghost haunting this castle.
I don't think so, because they seem to be all the ghost mechanics. They seem to be sort of the age they were when they died, for the most part. So I think he died shortly after what happened. Because
do you think Liam Neeson ghost threw himself off the balustrades in shame for having murdered his wife?
And, it is entirely possible that was in the original cut of the film. This, like you say, it burns through plot, and there's so much going on. This movie's only an hour and 39 minutes, which, I guess is a respectable length.
And a lot of that's credits.
Yeah. And the director, writer-director Neil Jordan of The Crying Game, he the famous Irish auteur, he maintains to this day that this is not the movie he made. Like the movie he shot and the movie that he started to cut together, it was more complex. It was kind of a mystery. I'm not sure what the mystery would be given the footage that is there for us. But apparently and famously, like the studio, like they got a hold of his first cut and said, "We don't know how to sell this. We don't know what to do with this." And then they locked him out of the editing room. They edited it together, and the released version, he's disavowed it. He's like, I my version of the film exists, but I guess nobody's ever going to see it. So
you're saying release the Jordan cut?
Oh. I am, I would never say that, but I would be interested to see what he did.
I'd be interested in hearing a conversation where he said, so this is the original idea of the movie. I don't necessarily, because I feel like that would be more interesting. Like have him do director's commentary.
Absolutely. And I think that for this remake, he should be involved as perhaps some sort of a producer and at least consulted. They can talk to him about it. But just to skip ahead in the podcast, we're not going to have him direct it.
No. God, this movie's weird. This movie makes Daryl Hannah choose Steve Guttenberg over Liam Neeson. And that is a decision that makes no sense.
No, it doesn't. Well, I mean, in the context of the characters that they portray, one is the objectively more attractive man is a wife-murdering asshole.
Yeah.
So there is that.
He is a stalker, wife-murdering asshole. He is all of those things. And Steve Guttenberg is just an idiot.
He's a schlub. He's kind of the worst.
I mean, Steve Guttenberg also probably not a great guy.
He's the sitcom husband.
Yeah, he really is. Man. This movie, like, I genuinely enjoyed this movie, but not because it's good.
I'm glad to hear that. Oh, yeah. So I do, I obviously have my nostalgia glasses. I look back on it through the rose-tinted shade of youth and I love it. But as I said, I haven't seen this in a long time. And so when the algorithm popped it up in front of me a couple of weeks ago and I watched it, I was just like, I enjoyed it and I had a good time and it's a fun romp. But I was also like, oh, that's actually terrible. Oh, ooh, wow. Ooh. Okay. And then when I showed it to my wife, she was like, this movie sucks. and then I look it up on IMDb, I look it up on Metacritic, and it was decent.
Yeah. But if you look at the comments on YouTube, because this movie is available for free on YouTube, which is how you know how good it is.
4 years. Nobody's tried to take it down. It was put up like in 2014.
Yep,
So
that's how
don't
good it
feel
is.
bad. Don't feel bad about it. Go look it up.
And but like all the comments, like every once in a while, like if I watch the movie on YouTube or something, I'll scroll down, look at the comments. All the comments are like, "This movie has such terrible reviews, but I love it." And I'm
Yeah.
like, nostalgia glasses for something like this are very, very real.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a serious problem with how Sharon and Martin ended up together because he's like, yes, I'm a murderer, but I'm Liam Neeson, aren't I?
Yeah. And
And
that like
literally, that's it.
that line at the end when he's like, "Oh, it hurt me worse than it hurt you." I was just like,
No,
"Oh,
it did not.
that's not good."
It's not good at all. Oh man. But okay, so I will say that some of the special effects, cheesy though they may have been, were good and fun because
Yeah.
they set it up with here's some really shitty ghosts. Like when they're doing the fake ghost thing, like they are
That's rough.
hamming it up and it's not great. And you're like, this isn't going to work. No one's going to believe this. And they don't. And it's the best part immediately because I thought that was going to be the whole movie because I kind of watched a trailer and I was like, okay, I get it. Let's talk about this because I didn't want to see too much. And I thought that was going to be the entirety of the movie. But then they were so bad. Yeah, gone. And I'm like, oh, cool. Now what? And then Peter O'Toole's real ghost dad shows up and hanging out with his alive mom is like, the ghosts aren't pleased about this. I bet we're gonna have to do something. And then actual things happen, like Miranda's bed starts spinning. There's ghosts and spooks all over the place.
Well, her bed spinning was the fake. That was.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. That was the fake one. But like the weird ghost nuns that
was legitimately scary.
Yeah, that was weird.
The Jawa nuns.
The Jawa nuns.
It's hard to imagine that, but if you watch this, you'll get what we mean by Jawa nuns.
Yeah. There's a moment where there's a guy staying there who's a paranormal investigator. There's this time he gets struck by lightning, and I legitimately like, did they just kill this guy?
My wife thought the same thing.
And like literally, he's laying on this thing smoking, and then he blinks, and I'm like, okay, I guess he's alive.
Yeah.
But there's a moment later in this movie where he's going to go out exploring and trying to figure out what's going on. And he's standing in front of, I think it's a fish statue, and a bloody hand shoots out of it and grabs him. Yeah. And that was a legitimate jump scare for me. Like I was expecting the fish to move. I wasn't expecting a bloody hand to come out of this fish. I was like, all right, movie, you got me. That was a good scare.
Yeah, there are a couple of them in there. Like they're a little incongruous. Like they don't it's kind of like, wait, what? But yeah.
And then when Liam Neeson possesses like the bus and is driving after them, and like all the animated ghosts start flying out of the bus, picking people up.
I imagine in the remake that will be a much scarier scene.
I was more impressed with how it looked, like because it wasn't scary at all.
Yeah,
but like the ghosts were picking things up. Yeah, because this is, I mean, I would say this is 90% comedy, 10% horror, if that.
Yeah.
But no, all right. I will say it is 85% comedy, 10% horror, 5% romance.
They didn't fall in love awfully quickly.
And like, don't you love me? I don't know, I guess.
I just saw you the other day. Yeah, do I? I don't know. I'm a loser.
I mean, you are kind of like backing me into this whole relationship thing. Like, I literally just saw you, and now you're devastated. Like, this is really emotionally manipulative, Daryl Hannah. Like, what are you even doing?
To be fair, if anybody's going to manipulate your emotions, it might as well be Daryl Hannah.
Yeah, I mean, previously on this podcast, we've done Splash. Yeah, and I feel like we've now hit the two big Daryl Hannah supernatural romances.
Yeah,
Daryl Hannah,
Mermaid,
Ghost and Mermaid. She can
be a mermaid ghost.
She has such range.
Yeah, and not for nothing, this is an award-nominated film. She was nominated for a Razzie. She didn't win, but she was.
No. I saw that in the comments too, and I was legitimately surprised. I did not think it was. I didn't think her performance was Razzie worthy.
It
wasn't good.
It wasn't good. And from this, like, as much as Steve Guttenberg is kind of like Steve Guttenberg, you kind of scratch your head and be like, why did that happen? But like
Yeah.
in an interview, like he was very generous. He's like, yeah, her Irish accent was great. And I'm like, well, that's a nice guy.
When she turned it on, there were some scenes where it's like, no accent here, accent over here, no accent here, and then she'd use the accent and be like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
Irish. And so basically their romance progresses because the basic premise is that like Daryl Hannah was murdered and then like she has to live out this murder every day for 200
Yeah.
years, which
And not
is
just the murder,
which
but
is
like the whole wedding day up to the night. Like he finds her at some point, like on the other side of the lake, away from the castle, and she's by a tree, like saying prayers to the saints, and and Mary, and be like, get me out of this, please. I'm really scared. Like I don't want to marry him. It's an arranged marriage. This sucks. And she has to do this forever, I guess. And then every night, the murder scene, but not just once every night. It happens over and over again, like on repeat, like an animated GIF.
yeah, for no reason really, but doesn't really matter. And so Steve Gutenberg interrupts this process and like he ends up getting ghost stabbed in place of her when he is drunk.
Drunkety drunk.
But the drunketiest. And and so then Daryl Hannah fixates on him, is like, well, clearly this guy had saved me this one time. I should be in love with him forever. And they start going through that process, and then in the meantime, the guy who's killing her, Liam Neeson, is like, oh, I guess I'm free now too. Hey, that dude's wife's pretty hot. I should go be in the shower when she's in the shower. It's
I mean,
I get
if
that it's
you're a
80s
ghost,
comedy. Look, it's 80s comedy in a way that's like, this shouldn't be happening. It's
it should
weird
be.
and bad.
It's not. It's not as bad as Revenge of the Nerds, but it's
No,
pretty bad.
no, Revenge of the Nerds is pretty bad. But yeah, the so that's essentially the movie. Like,
Yeah.
what are we gonna do?
So,
Because we have the big three components, right? Do
yeah,
we still have to maintain all three?
I, I want to. I want to maintain them. I want, because there's like a sort of sense, like, that first component about the mortgage and Peter O'Toole and like, Mr. Brugan over in America wanting to take the castle. That feels like a meaningful plot. Something can be said there. There's something to that. I want to keep that. I want to keep, the ghost story there. And then I want to do something with the romance, but we should do. I think it's going to end up being a longer movie than the one from the 80s, but I think it should still be a
Yes.
movie. But I think we can. I think a good team can make these three things happen and connect them in such a way that it's satisfying and functional.
Then before we actually start building it up, because I agree with you, I think we also need to discuss tone, because I kind of went zany farcical comedy, which I think is where this needs to live,
Yeah.
but while dipping into other genres.
Yeah.
Because I think at the end of the day, this is a comedy. And
yes, absolutely.
it's a comedy now, if that's not how it was originally intended.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm sure Neil Jordan will get a hold of, he'll see it and be like, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wrote. I'm like, well, okay, but this is what yeah, he'll harumph about it, but it's like, okay, buddy, you go make Byzantium 2 or whatever.
You cast Steve Gutenberg, it's a comedy. I don't care if you're Cocoon. You cast Steve Gutenberg, it's a comedy.
Yeah, and also just what you shot is really comedic. I mean, like, you can say like editing can change things and music can change things, but you had like a cardboard octopus steal a kid.
Which was great, and I genuinely loved that scene.
That was great.
Because once again, I'm like, are they going to kill this kid? Like, I thought they were Charlie and the Chocolate Factorying the kid. Oh man, that was awesome. And then you also have like these weird bits where like Peter O'Toole's getting out the rope. He's gonna hang himself.
There's a lot of suicidal ideation, like, and
waka.
And like Steve Gutenberg is like, I had a bad night and I'm drunk and my wife won't sleep with me, so I guess I'm gonna just overdose on her Valium.
Yeah.
I was just like,
oh yeah. And then Daryl Hannah like switches the bottles and he takes a bunch of headache medication. So instead he overdoses on Tylenol.
Yeah, and then the next day, Beverly D'Angelo roofies herself on Valiums, which was okay, great.
Yeah, all right. Whatever.
It should definitely still be a comedy. I want it to still be pretty screwball, but I want it would be good if the romance can come across and the sort of drama about the castle and the villagers and their plight and their conflict with this expat in America that wants to rip the castle to pieces and make it a joke in California.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. The way I think I would structure it is I think we have three stories. Let's make that our act one, act two, act three. Our teaser is premise. Here's what's happening. Because they basically say, they lay it out in like a minute. The castle's going to get sold. We need to bring
So
in money.
fast.
Let's fake some ghosts. Cool. Great. We're doing this. And that's act one. One of the things that this movie kind of did that I was realizing is that it's not really just bam, 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 each thing. Like, they do kind of set up that this is going to be happening. Like, they have the picture of Daryl Hannah in the dining room at the beginning.
Yeah.
The movie, like, what inspires them faking the ghosts is Peter O'Toole's mom saying, well, this place is haunted. I was just chatting with the ghosts the other day.
Yeah. But it seems like, oh, crazy mom is crazy.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she's married to a ghost. She's definitely a little batty. But the important thing is, but like, honestly, like the way they kind of blended together, I think works. Like, I think they should be faking the hauntings, and then I feel like what like they fake a bunch of them, and then one of the ones that they do is real, but they think it's also one of the fake ones, and they don't kind of realize that it's part of it, and then the fake things kind of bleed into the real ones without them realizing it. Like, it's not a snap the finger, wind and lightning, all of a sudden we're doing things different.
And a part of that could be like, because like you wouldn't, I mean, the bit about like, oh, I'm going to have a mummy in the room. It's like, why would there be a mummy in Ireland? Why would there be a mummy? It's like, as a part of trying to make these stories work, a part of trying to make, their Scooby-Doo scheme actually function. And this is a thing that happens in Scooby-Doo, not necessarily in all episodes, but in some, is that the ghosts are based on something from the history of the place that they're trying to haunt. So a part of that could work where it's just like, here's, Jim O'Flanagan. He was hung from the tree for stealing a loaf of bread. Here's his ghost. Well,
they do that. They opened with a banshee, which is a Irish spirit.
Well, but that's like a monster story. A banshee is a kind of spirit. It's a kind of monster. It's just like saying
specifically Irish.
It is specifically Irish, but it's like saying, here's the Wolfman, here's Dracula. Well, not Dracula, but here's the Wolfman. It's not grounded in ghosts, people who died in this castle. Like, if you have a castle, you have hundreds of years of history, and a lot of it is awful, siege warfare and just medieval society. So you have tons of stories of this was a terrible murder, these people died of famine, this, there was a siege and all of these people died of plague, etc. So you have a lot of historical options to pull from. Like the Lady Godiva thing, it's like, that story's not about a ghost. It's about a woman riding naked on her horse. I don't. What?
It's also not real. But the important thing is, but I also think that if, like, as much as they do spoofs of these goats, I think that every single story that they do should then eventually get eclipsed by the real version of that.
Yes.
Like, if they're going to be doing like the haunted bride who was killed on her wedding night.
Yeah. You could have you could have some of the villagers like ham-fistedly trying to act that out, and then over the course of the plot, like maybe a possession or something, or like the ghosts take over, or they sideline, they bump them, well, not bump them off, but sort of take their place.
They bump in the night them off.
Yeah, but nobody dies.
Nobody dies.
Nobody dies except for the dead.
Yes. But yeah, except for the people who have previously outside of the scope of, look, we're going for PG here, people, or PG, whatever. But I think that like that's how we transition from Act 1 to Act 2. Like, Act 1's just going to be all zany comedy, and I feel like Act 2 we're kind of going to get into like a little bit of the creepy horror, like, oh my god, this is real, and like the people who work at the hotel are slowly going to realize, oh my god, this is real, what's happening.
Yeah, I really loved that act break where it like did like the Tales from the Crypt bit, the camera like moving through the castle, and they used a real castle in Ireland for it. It was kind of fun.
But like at some point, the Peter Plunkett character is going to is going to find someone who's like just laying on the ground crying. He's like, come on, there's crazy things happening. And he's going to save someone and get her out of there. And it's
Yeah.
going to turn out that she herself is a ghost.
Yeah.
That's how I would do it.
Yeah.
And then we can get into whether or not like crazy obsession. Because I don't think it should be this full love story, and I don't think that these two pairs should pair off.
Yeah, that's difficult. Like the casting I did kind of can work. What it can either work the way it did in the original movie, or I had another idea, another direction it could go. But there is still, but either way, either way I'm thinking of, there's still a love story there. And then as for our ghost couple, the murderous Martin and poor Bissette. What was her name? Molly?
No, her name was Mary Plunkett.
Mary Plunkett, right? Yeah, Martin and Mary. Yeah, I kind of want to come up with something that's not quite like it's still like Martin's still a terrible, terrible person, but let's maybe not have him stab her to death. Like maybe they're fighting, and she goes out a window, like an accident, and he's like, oh, like something bad, like she falls. I don't know, but like not stab her 3 or 4 times. That was crazy.
I mean, if you want to make it sympathetic and not he is a murderer and a monster, you have to make it where it's like where they get married and on their wedding night, like they drank too much. Like literally, they could have gotten drunk, and she falls out a window, and completely aggrieved by the loss of this woman who he just married. He jumps out after her, and they die together in the moat.
Yeah, and you can still have it in such a way that like it's an arranged marriage, and she doesn't want it, but maybe he doesn't get that. Like it could, it could be a thing like they're both drunk, but she's like, well, here's my opportunity to get out of this and fall. I don't know.
I mean, a suicide's real dark.
Yeah.
Especially if we're starting with this as a comedy.
Yeah.
For me, it would make a lot more sense. So here's my pitch. My pitch is that they've created this great tragic love story where like they could even tell the story as it was in the original movie, where Martin kills Mary because he suspected she was sleeping with another guy.
Yeah.
And then, but for Mary's hand, she was doing all this. And that's the story they tell. But what really happened is she slipped and fell out a window.
Oh my God. I like that. I like that a lot. Like the version that got passed down through history is like, oh, look at Martin, this guy, he's this monster. He, murdered her on the wedding night, something like that. So he has to also off himself. Like, yeah, I that's good. That's good. Like the history changes, like the history, it becomes a murder, and like, look at this monster, Martin. And that actually fits really well with the other direction that I was thinking of going. Instead of having Jack go with Mary, I swap, instead of a Peter O'Toole type, instead of Peter Plunkett, I make it Plunkett Senior's daughter, of a sort of comparable age, and that there's an opportunity there for Jack to fall for the proprietress of the castle.
Oh, funny.
Instead.
I mean, I'm also perfectly happy with just like this whole crazy thing reignites the passion of the two individual couples. Like, we don't necessarily need anyone swapping with anybody. It could just as easily be like going through this thing together. We kind of can throw away a lot of the things that we built up and kind of allowed to calcify around our marriage. We've kind of broken that down, and we found this thing that originally pulled us to each other in the first place.
That's possible. Yeah, because with the Steve Guttenberg and Beverly D'Angelo, like that relationship and that setup, that sort of sitcom trope of the
that's the sitcom.
The hapless husband who's like, oh, let's have a snack, and she's like, I don't want to because I'm a shrew. That scenario, it's like, why did these two get married in the first place?
That's the thing. Like, I feel like it's more interesting, and I feel like a little bit less problematic if they rediscover in helping this other romance, they rediscover the thing that inspired their own romance in the first place.
That's I like that. That's positive. Positive works much better for comedy than horrifying murder suicide.
Ah, it hurt me. It hurt me more than it hurt you. You're a
Ugh.
because if it's that, he's the villain and he's trying to kill people. If we
Yeah.
make the Liam Neeson character, it hurt me more than it hurt you, then we need to end this by banishing him from the castle forever.
Yeah.
But that's also a little dark, and I feel like
then you leave. Well, then Mary can conceivably like rest in peace.
yeah, which is another possibility. But I also don't think we need like a big bad ghost. I think it's a lot more likely it's like there's been this legend created,
Yeah.
but it's a lot more mundane and we can play around with it a little bit more.
Yeah, and if there's a big bad ghost and like a a truly villainous villain, then I don't know that doesn't like that's
very modern, and I don't think we need it.
Yeah.
I think it's more fun if it's all just like if it's a farce, it's all just a series of hilarious misunderstandings. That's what a farce is. We don't have a big bad. The big bad is the mortgage owner back in America who we never see.
True.
That brings me to because we have other people here. Like I didn't cast all of the like townspeople or anything. I cast like Peter Plunkett, his mother, and 2 hotel assistants. But we also have brother Tony and Miranda, and then the paranormal investigators.
That's fun.
The paranormal investigator and his wife.
Yes.
I didn't.
Who seem to have a healthy relationship. You know.
Yeah. So the only
don't
people
see
I
that too often in a comedy.
No, but like I kept them, but I cast those characters, but I didn't go out of my way. Like if we end up cutting those characters, I'm not offended.
Yeah.
Because I feel especially if this is a farce, we've got to have other people running around doing stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I cast all those as well, and if it's a matter of servicing the story, if sort of like the side characters have to go away, then that's okay. Well, I mean, we have a couple of different little side character sets that can go. There's the priest and his temptation, Miranda, and then the paranormal investigator. Like you have sort of those 2 separate subplots, and like if you needed to make room, one of them could go, but I'd still want to keep one of the the only
thing I would do is I would create some sort of ghost story that's relevant to them that's kind of like sprinkled in throughout. I mean, for brother Tony and his love interest with the weird voice,
Jennifer Tilly's voice is amazing. Sort of.
It is. Yeah, it's
in a way.
It is definitely amazing, but not for the reason you might think.
It is an acquired taste.
Indeed. So I feel like there could just as easily be like some other, like there could be a bishop or a cardinal that died in the castle. And that cardinal could be someone who stayed to his vows and was like, yeah, no, this was my life. I did the right thing. And then brother Tony's like,
and you ended up here haunting a castle for all eternity, miserable.
This is heaven.
Oh yeah, I feel really sorry for those nuns. Shit.
Oh yeah, I mean those were clearly evil nuns.
Yeah, very clearly evil nuns. Which for Ireland, they have a history of terrible stuff with nuns.
Ireland has a history of terrible things with religious figures in general.
That's true.
Yeah. And so I feel like that would be an easy one to do for those 2. And then Miranda's just there for an adventure. And it's just like, and literally Miranda could hook up with the ghost bishop first. And then she's like, he was fun for a little while, but now I'm looking for something a little bit more long-term. And if there's anyone who's not afraid of commitment, it's someone who's willing to give his life away to join the whatchamacallit, the Fraternal Order of Holy Men.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
That's a man without commitment issues.
Yeah, that is. I like the voice. And honestly, the actress I went with she has a distinct voice.
Yeah, it's going to be really funny if we cast the same person because mine does too.
I doubt it. We'll
see.
We'll see. Yeah, it's fun. It's one of the fun things about this podcast. Listeners, this is why you should keep listening.
Yes. Which actually, it's happened like for the past 3-4 episodes. At
Mm-hmm.
least one of our things been the same each time, and I've loved it. It's because it's so weird and just a crazy. But anyway, so what do we want? What's your ghost story that you would tie for the paranormal investigators?
Ooh, well, for the paranormal investigators, like I mean, if we want to do a thing where everybody has a tied-in thing, then because there's, I mean, a ghost story that ties into paranormal investigators. So the way that I cast the husband and wife, I kind of thought about those not paranormal activities, but the Annabelle doll things, those movies about like real life paranormal investigator, like husband and wife team. The idea being that instead of just the husband being a parapsychologist, it's like a team. Like the two of them are together and they're like, this is nonsense and these aren't real ghosts. And I know real ghosts. We have ghosts collected at home in our basement or something. I can't remember the name of. There's a whole cheap horror movie franchise built up around these people and I can't remember their names.
I'm just thinking of Danny Phantom's parents.
That is as accurate and real to ghosts.
Yes. So I mean, you could also yeah, for those two, I kind of went like the broadest comedy for those two in particular, just
Mm-hmm.
because I think it's funny, and also because I think they have the potential to be the wackiest because they're kind of the
Yes.
most
They
they're the most
have they have
punchliney.
they have gadgets, they have inventions, they have assumptions, they have their biases and prejudices, and they have their things that they're trying to prove and do. And the things that parapsychologists are trying to prove and do are already silly. So you have a lot of opportunities for screwball comedy. I mean, like in the
Absolutely.
original when he's like hanging up like strips from the ceiling to gauge the moisture and barometric pressure, it's like, yeah, that's pretty silly. He's
Yeah.
like walking around with a wand and a night vision, headset. It's like, okay, buddy.
Just I mean, so what's a ghost, a spook, or a specter that would belong with them? Do you want to go crazy and go Van Helsing, like the
N-
ghost of Van Helsing?
no, no. I ugh. I think it would be a more modern ghost, a recent ghost, somebody who's died recently, maybe somebody who didn't necessarily hold. This might be an opportunity to give Plunkett Sr. an opportunity to do more. Like he could be, a dyed-in-the-wool rationalist and he dies and suddenly he's a ghost and he's like, oh, well, shit, I was wrong about everything forever. All right, fine. And so he could look at this as an opportunity to screw with the people who are like, ghosts, maybe?
That's not a bad idea. Like doing something where either we kill someone for real in this movie and they become a ghost and
No,
they don't know they're a ghost.
no, I don't want to do
Okay, fair enough.
that.
But like you could also just have it just be a random additional person on the tour and they've been a ghost this whole time and
mm. The ghost
and
of tourists past, because the castle
yeah,
for decades, at least since the 80s, has been a hotel.
yeah. And every hotel in the world has had someone die in it.
That's true. That's true.
And
Some
literally it could
hotels,
be someone going around taking pictures, being like, this is so cool. I love this castle.
1980s stereotype Japanese tourists taking pictures of everything.
I
Nah, that's
mean, you
terrible.
could do that. But
That's
like
terrible.
literally you could have someone say, every year I visit the castle at this time. And it's just every year this person haunts this castle.
And they're like, man,
And
we have this one reliable customer. Hey, good to see you, Bob.
yeah, and one of the things where they're starting to go through, and like Peter O'Toole's finally going through the books, and he's like, I'm realizing
He
such
never
and such a
pays.
person has never paid.
Or not paid since like 1989.
Yeah, and yeah, you could basically do that,
Actually, that's a fun idea. I like that.
and that and
and
that could
and
be the person who teams up with the paranormal investigator because the paranormal investigator asks them because they visited the castle most often.
and Plunkett Senior like knows them since they were there. Like they like have conversations. Like because
Yeah,
this person started going there in like 78 or 79 or something, paid all the way through 88, and then just accidentally drowned in the lake.
yeah, basically. Like honestly, like they just never made it onto the bus home.
Oof.
And And you could play around with it. And it's one of those things where then when you go back and rewatch the movie a second time, you'll realize that this person never interacted with something that they themselves didn't bring in. They don't touch any of
Hmm.
the food. They don't pull out or tuck in their chair.
Yeah.
They kind of
You,
slide in, sit down. They
you
only
get
go through
your
already open doors.
Yep, yep. You go ahead and get yourself the M. Night Shyamalan moment. That's great. I
Yeah.
like it.
You you sixth sense them. And that way you get to have all three of these people goofing around and doing like the full zany comedy
Yeah, I
while
like that.
also yeah, so let's do that.
All right, I like that. I have no idea who that should be, but I like that.
Well, when we figure out who the other two are, we'll figure out a third
A
pairing for
good
them that
person
kind
to
of
go with
works.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. So honestly, I feel like we have kind of the shape of our movie.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I
Let's.
think we do. So instead, I like that. I like that idea of like Mary and Martin. Like their story has been incorrect. It's been passed down as this horrible murder when it was a horrible tragedy, and part of the story is like sort of correcting the historical record, correcting the way people understand it. And like they could be aggrieved at seeing the villagers like reenacted as some sort of murder. I'd be like, oh my, I can't believe this is happening. We have to come out and show ourselves for this. And
Yeah,
I like the
it's also
idea.
clearing Martin's name or
Yeah.
clearing Mary's name. Like we could certainly flip it. We could say Mary killed Martin, and then
Oh,
because
and
like that's when
that would be the sort of story that's more likely to go down in history. Like, not to cast aspersions on the patriarchy or nothing, but stories of husbands murdering their wives are less likely to go down in history than, can you believe that Mary murdered her good husband Martin? Ugh.
yeah, let's do that. Like let's flip it and say Mary murdered Martin and then killed herself because she was a hysterical woman.
Mm.
Meanwhile, it's just like this crazy tragedy thing that
Yeah, it was an
happened,
accident. Yeah.
and it's just all about clearing the name. But it's like, but if you're there on the wrong night, the ghost of the evil Mary Plunkett can come out and haunt you.
I like that. That's good. That's good. Yeah,
All
I
right,
think
great.
we got a
Then
good
let's
structure.
I think so too. Let's start casting. Let's start with our Peter O'Toole, Peter Plunkett.
Okay.
Who owns this hotel?
Okay. So I'm gonna start on this and say that I've been aware of your podcast, this podcast for years, and so a couple of years ago, when I ended up rewatching this movie, I thought about the idea of somebody doing a remake of High Spirits, and my first thought was Liam Neeson should be, the Peter Plunkett character. And to a certain extent, that could still work. That could be fun. Liam Neeson could do it because he is, as much as he has done nothing but murderous revenge movies for the last decade, he is actually a funny guy. He can do zany screwball comedies, but nah, that's
Yeah,
kind of boring. I don't want to take
I
anybody
had
that was
I had the same thought and I also dismissed it.
yeah.
But
So
I will
I
say that for every single person based in the hotel or in the town or was killed or like in the hotel, I went out of my way to cast someone who is in fact Irish.
Yeah, I did too. So,
Yes.
well, except for Ma Plunkett, I did something a little different there. So after pushing Liam Neeson aside, I went with Irish actress Ruth Negga, who is most recently famous for being Tulip on Preacher,
She's
and
also
she was in
Reyna on
Loving.
Agents. She's also Reyna on Agents of Shield. Do you want to know
That's
how I
true.
know that?
How do you know that? I mean,
I
apart from
also
watching
went.
Agents of Shield.
I also went with Ruth Negga for Peter Plunkett.
Oh snap! You know how we were saying earlier that this is the reason you should listen to the show? All right. All right. All right.
Oh my god, that's so amazing!
All right. That's great. That's great.
uh, this was the one where I was like, this is the one where I went a little bit left field. I don't, like we're gonna have a
Yeah.
conversation because I think this is a cool idea. I
All right.
cannot believe we just did that. Oh my god, oh,
All
that
right. Well,
because I made that comment earlier because I'm like, it won't happen this time. It'll happen when we get to Miranda, but it's not going to happen here because.
if it happens with
Uh,
Miranda, I'm gonna feel bad.
I mean, look, there's a good chance that's going to happen too. But oh my god, that's so Amazing. I'm so
Okay.
happy right now. Yeah, because she's
Okay.
so good. So I really
She's
know her from
very
Agents of
good.
S.H.I.E.L.D., where she
Yeah.
plays Reyna. And she's so interesting and compelling an
Was
actress.
Yeah, and was she only in the first? She was only in the first couple seasons, right? Like she
Yeah,
got done with it, and then she moved on. She Loving, she did that. You know, she was Oscar nominated. She's a very good actress. And then
extremely
Preacher
good.
is a great show. You should watch Preacher if you haven't watched Preacher. I need to catch up on that and finish it, I guess. Where she plays with her husband, what's his face, Dominic Cooper? Yeah. But yeah, Ruth Nega, I chose her. I think that she can sort of play. She can give us broad comedy. She can give us the pathos of being like, I'm going to lose the family, castle, the estate. Like things are going bad for me. This is not going. She can be at the end of her tether. I don't want her to be suicidal about it,
No, absolutely not.
but I do, and sort of the backstory that I came up with and sort of informed casting for Ma Plunkett and honestly for Beverly D'Angelo's character Sharon was that, and I think that this could sort of help the story of the Brogans like wanting to take the castle. Is that Jim Brogan and Plunkett Senior were like childhood friends? They were close, like they grew up together. Because like as a throwaway line, Sharon, says like, "Oh, he grew up here. He's from here. He hates the Plunketts." But that's kind of like it. That's all there is to that story. I kind of like the idea of these two being like childhood friends. They grow up. They leave Ireland they leave in like the 70s because Ireland has difficulties. There's opportunities out there, and they both end up in these relationships. And one stays in America, and one comes back to Ireland to take care of the family castle. And that informed how I cast both Sharon and Ma Plunkett.
I got nothing against that. Do you want to talk about Sharon now?
Yeah,
Before we
let's
get
go.
to Jack, let's talk about Sharon
Yeah,
now.
let's go to Sharon and give her so originally Beverly D'Angelo, who would work with Neil Jordan again in a movie called The Miracle, which I had never heard of, and I watched the trailer earlier, and it gave me really weird vibes. Like, just watch the trailer for Neil Jordan's The Miracle and see if you also get weird vibes. Tweet me; it'll be great. Yeah, yeah. Or if you've seen it, I let me know if my vibes are correct. So anyway, I went with Olivia Munn. So she's like about the same age as Ruth Nega. She can play broad comedy. She can also be hard and domineering. And I think she can take that role and do a pretty good job with it.
I think Olivia Munn is good casting. When I was thinking of Sharon, I was thinking of kind of country club. I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking country club, but can also do like comedy.
Mm-hmm.
So with that in mind, I also like just in terms of like age for everybody because there's like a big disparity in age between all the different characters, and that was weird for me. So
Yeah.
I kind of like put everyone kind of in the same 10-year things. But one of the
Yeah.
things I did was I made a special. So Steve Gutenberg, I put like late 20s, early 30s. I had Mary Plunkett be a couple years younger than that, and I had Sharon be a couple years older than that.
Holy shit, I did the same thing. I literally
Awesome.
did the exact same thing. I did it in such a way that Jack is cast, it's like he's early 30s, so it makes sense for him to be married to someone who's 38, 39.
Uh huh.
Or he could have a conceivable relationship with somebody who is, without giving away my Mary Plunkett casting, somebody who's like currently 28 or 26.
Yeah, I think mine's 28 also.
And
But
also like not to like the idea of him being younger kind of can sort of like a younger man, like the sort of dynamics of marriage, like a
exactly. It
younger
might inform
man
their
with an older
dynamic.
woman could be like, oh, she's like, oh, I made a mistake with this one, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that could absolutely happen, and so that's why I found the like it's nothing that's ever specifically stated, but in the casting, I think makes it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So my Sharon is Anna Camp. Anna Camp, who you may know from Pitch Perfect, she's in The Help. She's currently in Perfect Harmony.
Oh, in Pitch Perfect, she's the sort of sorority,
Yeah, she's the
like
blonde
head.
one.
She's the very officious, like kind of like I'm in charge of everything.
Exactly.
one. Right. Okay, yes, I know her. She's good. She's good.
Yeah. So like she's not strictly like farcical comedy, but she can do comedy. I mean, she's in Perfect Harmony right now, and everyone says she's very good. But she's also in The Help, where she's like the trust fund person, and she's like the blonde, put together one. And I could totally see her being that kind of
Yeah,
like trust fund thing.
that makes sense. And but so I took this opportunity to sort of make the connection between the Brogans and the Plunketts in that both old Papa Brogan and old Papa Plunkett, they both went abroad and they both got involved in interracial relationships. Like, Olivia Munn is half Asian and Ruth Negga is half Ethiopian. You have an opportunity to say like these two guys were on a very similar track. They sort of matched up in so many ways. They did so many similar things. They were so close. Like, they were good friends. They were good brothers. Like maybe, he didn't come to the funeral or something. And that's a point of contention that, she brings up on the phone. Like, why, you weren't at Pa's funeral.
Hey, you don't.
And like they were like in so many ways. And yet
I'm not opposed
one
to
goes
that.
back
Like,
home.
yeah, I love Olivia Munn. Like, I think Olivia Munn is great, and I think she's super funny, and I think she's often underutilized. And so I
Mm-hmm.
think putting her in this situation, I think works really well. So I'm perfectly happy to go with Olivia Munn.
Okay.
But now let's talk about our Steve Gutenberg,
Okay.
our Jack. You went first for the last one, so
Yeah, I did.
I'll talk about this one. So, one of the things that I was doing is because I was going out of my way to cast Irish people for the people from Ireland, I was trying to be a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more diverse for my other casting, and
Gotcha.
specifically for this one, I also was trying very hard for some of the people who needed to be funny, casting people who do funny things.
Yeah.
So for this guy in particular, he hasn't done that much, but he won a Golden Globe for his stand-up special. He is himself Muslim, and so his show is the self-titled Rami. He's also in something called Why Him Dumb comedy movie, and he won a Golden Globe for his stand-up special. So his name is Rami Youssef,
I've
and
heard the
so
name.
I had two, but I never watched it, and so I watched his Stephen Colbert stand-up special, and his 5 minutes on the Late
On
Show with Stephen
Colbert.
Colbert, and he
I've
was very
probably
funny.
okay.
And he's that kind of like hang dog, like, so these are the things that are going on. It's crazy, right?
Yeah. What's the deal with the shitty world we're in?
Well, yeah, but from a perspective of yeah, but good. But so I thought he was very funny, and I thought he kind of had the right energy for this character,
Mm-hmm.
especially because I didn't like it's a little Steve Gutenberg, but not so nuts.
Yeah. That was one of the funny things about this. I literally Googled, who is today's Steve Gutenberg? Which,
Yeah,
by the way, Google could not answer
no.
because who is today's Steve Gutenberg? I mean, like, really, like, why was this guy a movie star? I don't get it.
Today's
Like,
Steve
he's
Gutenberg might be crap. What's his name? Ant Man.
really
It
no
might
Paul
be.
Rudd. Paul Rudd.
Yeah,
No, Paul Rudd is actually funny, and Paul Rudd has been
I
doing this for.
agree.
Paul Rudd has been doing this for 20 years. Wait, he was on Clueless, right? Paul Rudd was on Clueless.
He was in the
Yeah,
Clueless movie. Yeah, he
he's
was
been in this
the
for
brother.
decades. And Steve Gutenberg like had the 80s and then he quit. Like he left in 89 or 90. He just walked away from Hollywood. He's been in a couple of little things here and there, but he basically stopped working.
So then you're saying that the modern day Steve Gutenberg is Zach Braff.
Well, perhaps it is Zach Braff, and that would be an excellent choice. Somebody else go ahead and cast Zach Braff as Jack, but it's not me.
No.
I went ahead and I went with Nicholas Holt, who
Oh
is
yeah.
an attractive, humorous actor who
Hmm.
kind of gets work and like he's good and
He
people
gets a
like
lot of
him.
work.
And he's in his early 30s, so he is not quite a decade younger than Olivia Munn, and not quite a decade older than who I cast for Mary, and not quite a decade younger than who I cast for Peter Plunkett. So he kind of works for either direction. Like as far as the movie's concerned, like if you're watching it for the first time and you have no idea what High Spirits is, conceivably Nicholas Holt could end up with anyone because he's 33,
Yeah.
32, whatever it is.
He's a very funny guy. Like he's currently in The
Uh,
Great, and he's
yeah,
apparently fantastic in
I
that.
have been meaning to watch that. I really would like to watch that movie. In fact, I
And
might watch it after this.
he's good in Mad Max Fury Road. He's good
Yes,
in the X-Men movies. He's good
he's
in just about everything he's ever done.
yeah, he's one of the better parts of the recent X-Men movies.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like First Class and I like Days of Future Past.
those are the good ones. Good job.
I agree. Those are the good ones.
Yeah,
Olivia Munn's in the other ones.
that's true. Oh, well, she's in the one. She's in Apocalypse. She's not in Phoenix.
And I think they counted. I think she has 4 lines.
Yeah, she's
That's
not.
why I'm saying she's criminally underutilized because she
She
gets to
is
play this
not.
amazing character.
She's
She
not
gets to
well.
play Psylocke. Doesn't
Yeah,
matter.
doesn't matter.
I love
Nothing,
Nicholas Holt.
nothing to do there.
I would for this. I would suggest we go with Rami Youssef, just because
Yeah,
I feel like it's a little bit of a left field choice and it's a little bit more
that's fine.
unexpected.
With Jack, I'm not. I'm not set on the casting on Jack, so that's
Yeah.
fine. We can go with that
Yes.
because
Yeah.
he's kind of a schlub. Like as a
Yeah.
character, he's just kind of there, and it's like it's very clear in a relationship. Like they never sort of say it, but like the bit where Sharon's like all business, a word you're not familiar with, Jack. Like I think she's the one who actually makes the money. I don't know why
Oh
in the
yeah.
movie they didn't like come out and say it, but she's the one who actually has the job. And maybe Jack does something like sculpting.
It's a relationship where she fell in love with the musician, or she fell in love with him because of his sense
Exactly.
of humor.
Oh
In
my
this
god! And
case,
that, well, maybe not his sense of humor, but if we could come up with some sort of like art or poetry or something, like oh god, that scene where he reads off the Big Bopper's thing about a long neck goose, that made me mad.
that
I
was
hate it.
so bad. That was
That was
so bad.
bad. Like I get that it's a song, but it's like, dude,
Dude,
just
don't do that.
quote
Don't be
something else.
that guy.
Let's give him some sort of a skill that can make women fall for him quickly.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's just charisma or wit. Yeah. So
Yeah,
yes, let's
yeah.
go with Rami Youssef.
All right,
So
I'm good with
that brings us to Mary and Martin. Who do you want to start with? Mary or Martin?
Okay, so Mary, I went with what is probably an obvious choice, but an attractive blonde Irish. Daryl Hannah was American.
Yeah.
So, but in this case, she's not going to have any difficulty with the accent. I went with Saoirse Ronan.
Yeah, I thought about her. Saoirse Ronan is probably perfect for this.
Yeah,
And
she's quite funny. Did you see her on Saturday Night Live? Really good.
I saw bits and pieces, but like, yeah, she's just generally a very funny human being. I considered her, and then I felt like she'd end up somewhere anyway, so I wanted to go with a left field choice, someone a little bit less well known. And I went with an actress named Sarah Bolger.
Oh, I love her.
From the Spiderwick Chronicles and Into the Badlands,
and the Tudors. She was Bloody Mary in the Tudors. Yeah, I love her, and that would be great. And yes, do it.
Okay.
Sarah Bolger is great. She's really good. She was also in Once Upon a Time, the ABC like fairy tale Disney movie show.
Right.
She was Sleeping Beauty in that. She's very good.
Awesome. Perfect.
I like that.
So let's go with her.
She's going to cost a lot less than Saoirse Ronan.
That's true. Saoirse Ronan has an Oscar now, right? Or no? She's definitely been nominated like twice.
She's been nominated, but I don't know if she has it yet. And she's gonna get it. She's gonna get it. So yeah, Sarah Bolger is perfect. I love that, and especially if she's not like sort of the the sort of romantic interest. Like if it's sort of a side story of clearing her name and making their relationship good, then it works. Yeah, that's good. I like it.
Love it. Saoirse Ronan has only ever been nominated for an Oscar.
Okay. She's gonna win now.
She's been nominated for an Oscar 4 times.
Oh my god. She's like 26.
I know. So she's been nominated for Atonement, for Little Women, for Lady Bird, and for Brooklyn.
Shit.
Yeah.
And she has worked with Neil Jordan. She was with Gemma Arterton in 2012's Byzantium.
Yeah.
She played a vampire.
She works. But yeah, okay. So we'll go with Sarah Bolger for Mary Plunkett. So you went first. Let me talk about my Martin. For Martin, I went with someone who's also been in Once Upon a Time. He's also been in The Fall. I went with kind of like the strong Irish jawline, kind of like the new Liam Neeson kind of thing, like the
Yeah.
attractive guy, and he's
Yeah.
attractive. So like,
Yeah.
what did this woman do to this guy?
Christian Grey.
Yeah, so he might be. I don't think so. Jamie Dornan.
Yes, that's Christian Grey.
Is it Christian Grey?
It is. I looked at him, and the thing, yeah, because The Fall and 50 Shades of Grey, like I looked at him and I considered him, and if we do a thing where Martin and Mary like legitimately wanted to have a good relationship and history twisted it, then that makes more sense than my casting. Because
Well, we don't know that yet. I don't know what your casting is. Maybe we like it better. Oh yeah, you're right. He's Christian Grey. I missed that. Shoot. That's fine. I'm sure he's still a nice guy. By all accounts, he is. They just had no chemistries. I haven't seen the movies, but my understanding is they're both perfectly nice people. They just have zero chemistry.
They're very attractive. They're both very attractive. Yes. And if that's all you care about, good for you.
I mean, that's kind of how those books and movies are structured anyway. Like, they're attractive. That's all we care about.
And that started out as a fan fiction for which movie? I mean, which books? The
Twilight.
Other movie thing was Twilight. That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. So who did you have for Martin?
I had somebody who could be more villainous and could conceivably end up with Sharon if we decided to go with sort of the original way things went. I went with an older actor. I went with Colin Farrell. So he's 44.
Oh, that's much older. Yeah. Wait,
well,
Colin Farrell's only 44?
Yeah, he's only 44.
I feel like he's got to be older than that.
No, he's not.
I'm honestly surprised.
Look it up.
Yeah, no. I mean, you're right. I mean, obviously you looked it up too.
Yeah. So he's only 44, and it works in such a way that, you know, for a couple of centuries ago, that's a sensible arranged marriage. If you're trying to get rid of your daughter who's 26, 28, you want to give her off to somebody, and like, you know, there's this unmarried 44-year-old lord of Plunkett Castle. It works. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But also, if you were to stick with the original story and have Sharon die and swap corporealness with Mary, Olivia Munn, being 39 or 40, is a much more even like age match with with Colin Farrell. And like you have that was sort of my original idea with the casting, is the idea that they're a better match for each other. And Olivia Munn, you know, can play that sort of cold and hardness and be into that darkness more. And Colin Farrell is a funny guy who can. Oh,
he's very funny.
He's a very funny guy. He can also be very dark. He's a really good actor. He can do it. And if we were to, I didn't think of originally the idea that in history, you know, there was a tragic mistake where like they both fell out a window and flippin' died. You know, I was thinking
you were going with the original story. Yeah, which is fair.
Where he's murderous somehow. I didn't want him to flippin' stab her 3 times, but maybe like accidentally throw her out a window, or she falls and hits her head on a furniture, and then he's like in grief and remorse throws himself out the window. But that was my reasoning for Colin Farrell, is that he's in history, it makes sense that a 44-year-old would be married to someone in her mid-20s. It's like, how did you get to your mid-20s without being married? And then for ending up with Sharon, who is older than her current husband, Jack, it's like sort of like linking them up together. That was...
Yeah, I mean, the logic there makes total sense to me. I'm split on this one. I feel like Martin could be either Jamie Dornan or Colin Farrell. I think neither of us is especially enthusiastic about this.
No, but the thing is, I have never seen Jamie Dornan be funny. I'm sure he can be.
That is a fair argument.
I'm sure he is a charming guy, and if I met him, he'd be like, wow, this Jamie Dornan is the coolest person I've ever met. But on film, Colin Farrell he can be a funny fucking dude. Yeah.
Here's another possibility. Do we want to cut this character? Is this character necessary for our movie?
Well,
I mean, presuming we have the 2 couples end up together, but we could also have the one couple end up together, and then Mary is finally able to move on with her life.
Well, but if she's
exonerated, move on to her afterlife.
Well, but if she's exonerated and she gets to move on to her life, she still has to have somebody to act against. She can't just be there by herself.
That's true. You're right. We do.
Because otherwise
Okay,
it's
you're right. We do need it.
we don't
I
want to
just
have
wanted
Sarah
to play
Bolger
with it.
sitting by a window by herself being like, "Oh, the villagers think I murdered my husband, Martin."
Yeah. The thing is, like, I think you're right in terms of Jamie Dornan, but I don't necessarily like, even though that what historically would have been, and for your purposes, I absolutely agree that would have been right. I also don't want her to end up back together with someone who's 15 years older than her. I feel like
Well,
we can. I feel like we can top this. Let's come back to this one. I feel like we'll be able to come up with someone
I
else.
mean, it might be somebody in who I cast because for the assistants, the town people, the villagers, I did not go with no names.
Oh, I didn't either, but again, I only went with two. I mean, I didn't go with like whatever. We'll get to that. So
Yeah, we'll get to it.
we'll come back to Martin. Let's talk
Well, yeah,
about Brother Tony.
Martin's a tough nut to crack. Okay, so
Yeah.
brother Tony. All right, so you went first last time, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So I'll take this one. I'll take this one. So I've got like a couple of options. So brother Tony, like there's an opportunity. This is one of the opportunities to sort of spice up or to change the color palette, so to speak.
Yep.
We cut because this was a production in '88 where it was like Irish and American and UK. Now it's a global thing. Ireland is a film hub all its own, and it can work with anybody. So conceivably, Brother Tony doesn't have to come from America.
That's true. I didn't think about that, but that's true.
I came up with. I didn't really settle on one option. I've got two. I have two options. Should I pick one in my head right now, or should I give you both?
Pick one. Let's see what happens.
Pick one. Okay, I'll pick one. I'm going to go with William Jackson Harper from Chidi Anagonia from The
Yeah,
Good Place.
Chidi's a
So
great choice.
I think that he can be that sort of stolid, stoic character who's like, I'm committing myself to this philosophical and religious choice, and this is what I'm doing with my life. And he can easily sort of give us that play of being tempted by a very attractive human female. And ultimately give in to that. I think that William Jackson Harper would be a good fit for that. I think we would, in whatever movie we end up doing.
I feel like, yeah. I think William Jackson Harper is probably who we'll end up going with, because I feel like that is the correct choice. And it is kind of like following kind of the expected, like,
And
this is playing
he
to
can be from
type.
just about anywhere. Like that.
Oh, yeah, of course. Like, and also he's super great. So I also went with a stand-up here, but it's a stand-up who's been in a bunch of different things. Like, he was in the movie I Feel Pretty. He was in the movie The House. He's been on Superstore. He's a stand-up comedian named Rory Scovel.
Don't know that guy.
Just a stand-up, like if you look him up, just a bearded stand-up guy who you could see kind of like changing his life for the better and joining the Sacred Order. And
Rory.
but I feel like William Jackson Harper's probably the way to go. But Rory Scovel's just a comedy person who I feel like kind of fits this
All
comedy.
right, I recognize that guy, but so I definitely, and we talked about this a little bit at the beginning, or perhaps we talked about it before we started recording. I watched this episode recently. I mean, I watched this movie with my wife the other night, who had never seen it before, and she was like, "This movie sucks, but at least that priest was hot." She was like, his eyebrows were amazing. And I'm like, okay, fair point. Eyebrows were amazing. Like originally he was played by Peter Gallagher, who is not an unattractive man. And sort of like keeping that in mind, well, I mean, no offense to Rory Scovel.
I mean, she also said before we got started that she wanted to cast based on the eyebrows alone and wanted to go with Cara Delevingne.
Well, I mean, yeah, but okay, if we're going on eyebrows, no offense to Rory Scovel, but I just looked him up on Google, and the first image to pop up, he doesn't appear to have any.
No, he does not. He's pretty blonde. Yeah, no, I agree. I think William Jackson Harper's the correct choice for this role.
Okay, and I won't give you my other one, who was much more attractive and has really great eyebrows.
I'm sure he's great. We'll just have to wonder. So then let's talk about Miranda.
Okay.
So for Miranda, I went with a comedian who has a very distinct voice.
Okay.
I think we both have this same person. But basically, I think it's someone who is herself very, very funny and can kind of play around with the idea, but also can be very alluring and sexy in her own right. And I think that's why Michelle Wolf is an interesting choice here.
That is an interesting choice, and that is not my choice. So there you
Ah,
go.
all right. At least we'll always have Ruth Nega.
We will always have Ruth Nega, and what a casting to have. Yeah, we'll talk a little more about you want to talk a little more about Michelle Wolf. She's good. I like
I
her.
just think she's very funny. I think that she doesn't like we all kind of know who Michelle Wolf is because of her like White House Correspondent speech, but she does like
Hmm.
she's kind of a mainstay
Well,
of
and the
different
Daily
comedy
Show.
shows and the Daily Show, right? But like that's the thing, like she's a mainstay of all these shows where like people in comedy love her, but she's not getting a lot of play outside of that. I don't even know how much of an actress she really is, but
Hmm.
that's why I thought it'd be fun to kind of play with her in this role.
Okay. All right. Well, I went with somebody who is herself quite funny. She's age appropriate. She's about the same age as the person I as the other person I cast. She's early 30s, and she's good. She's had a show recently on Hulu called Dollface. I went with Kat Dennings,
Yeah,
who
I thought you might have.
no offense at all to Michelle Wolf, but if we want to tempt a priest, I think Kat Dennings would be able to do it more easily.
I feel like that's why that's what I think. I feel like there's two ways of going about this
Yeah.
because I feel like even if you're a priest, Kat Dennings is a very beautiful young woman, and I feel like if you're a priest, you've seen very beautiful young women before. I feel like just well, this one's the most beautiful, and
Well,
I feel like it's someone like it hasn't like you haven't found like the person yet, and I feel like it's interesting if it's all of a sudden this person like it was just in the original movie. It's just well, look at these incredibly attractive two young people, and if we're going straight up farcical comedy, it's like start with why would this guy be attracted to her, and then he is.
mm, but I feel like I sort of made a mistake in like talking about casting
No,
her because
here's the
it's like
thing.
because Kat Dennings is
Kat,
also very good and like she writes her own
she's
stuff. It's very
incredibly good.
funny.
She's very funny. She's been on a couple of truly amazing shows, and she's also very clever because she's made herself producers of those shows and has become very successful because of that. Like she's very smart, witty, and she's a phenomenal actress who honestly kind of is at a point where in her career she gets to pick and choose things, and she kind of gets to pick things where she gets to have fun. I have nothing against Kat Dennings. I've used her before. I think Kat Dennings is wonderful. But in terms of temptation, I think that's a little on the nose, which is why I avoided it.
Okay, all right, that's a fair point. And if we go with my priest, then we can go with your Miranda. Fine,
I think that's a fair compromise.
that's a fair compromise.
It's a fair compromise that I'd already been like, yeah, your guy for sure.
Okay,
All right. So then let's talk about the two paranormal people.
that's
So I went first for so it's Malcolm and Marge. There's a
mm-hmm.
we haven't talked about this.
Oh,
There's a lot of M names in this script.
there
There's
are
Mary, Martin,
Mary.
Miranda, Malcolm, Marge, Ma Plunkett.
Well, I mean that's okay. Mrs. Plunkett is also an M.
Yeah, it's like I feel like the screenwriter hated themselves, but I also think this was written before final draft, so it's
Well,
like
I
since it was
mean
physically typing it as opposed to
Molly.
relying
You
on
know,
autofill.
Molly, Mary, M is a very Irish letter.
Miranda, Malcolm, and Marge are not Irish.
Well, but Molly.
Yeah, I didn't say that name.
Yeah, I know you didn't. I know you didn't say that, but in terms of sort of prototypical and stereotypical Irish names, Molly,
Yeah,
the Molly Maguires, the Mollies. You know, you say Molly like
absolutely.
Molly is the name of a drug. For God's sake, it's M, M and P, Patrick's,
I
Patty's. You know, you got
uh,
P,
so
M and P are
anyway,
pretty
so for
common.
Malcolm, so we have Malcolm and Marge. These are the two where I
Yeah.
went kind of like the broadest comedy, and I also aged them up a little bit.
Okay.
I think my Malcolm's mid-40s, and I think my Marge is 39.
Okay.
So I'll go first for this anyway. So my Malcolm, broad comedy, John C. Riley. Chicago, like he's Mr. Cellophane in Chicago. He's Between Two Ferns, Step Brothers. Broad comedy, can do crazy, ridiculous things and put himself in weird situations. And we can get him struck by lightning and his hair will stand on end and it will be funny.
His hair already stands on end, but yes, it would
It's
be funny.
great. Right, but he can also be completely put together. Like you can have him completely put together, and he just gets more and more John C. Riley crazy between two ferns as the movie progresses.
More and more disheveled as things go. Yeah, that's a distinct possibility. You could definitely do that.
But that's who I had for Malcolm. Who did you have for Malcolm?
Okay, shoot. I didn't have enough time to come up with another one. Okay, so I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. What I did was originally the priest, Brother Tony, I had cast as William Jackson Harper, and then I changed my mind and went with that other one. But I was like, I love William Jackson Harper so much that I made him, that on my list here, I made him Malcolm, the paranormal.
Well, no, hold on. It's oh no, Irish. Never mind. Keep going. Okay, sorry. Keep going. So who did you? Who's your attractive guy that you're going to throw into Malcolm?
Oh. I don't know how funny he is. I don't know if he's funny at all. Richard Madden.
I don't even know who that is.
Oh, it is Rob Stark, and also he was in the Netflix and BBC series. Shit, what's it called? He won an award for it. It's really good. I watched it, but I can't remember the name of it because it's so generic. Oh God, Richard Madden's good. He has really killer eyebrows. No, he's terrible. No. What?
Is the show called The Take?
He is a good actor. Oh, yeah, he was in that too. That's true.
I wouldn't describe him as funny in that movie, but he's very good.
No, that is who I had sort of shifted, put into the priest role. So you just asked, and I threw him.
Yeah, I feel like
that is not who I would cast.
I feel like William Jackson Harper is better. Yeah. So, but did you have did you have Marge?
I do have the what?
Okay, yes. Who do you have for Marge?
Yeah, I don't know if she's really age appropriate for John C. Reilly, but I had Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Oh yeah, Melissa Fumero is great. She's really great. The problem is she's not age appropriate.
She's in her mid-30s, and when you get to mid-30s, it's kind of less of an issue.
It is, but like you put the two side by side, and it's weird. And like you'd be like, well, she could be his daughter because she looks young, he looks old. Let me tell you about who I paired him with.
Okay, who did you pick? If you were
funny
John C. Reilly, I'm sure you came up with somebody who's a better match for John C. Reilly.
I can tell you that they've had on-screen chemistry before, but like in a different, unexpected way, because they've definitely worked together and been a pairing.
All right.
Sarah Silverman.
Oh, okay.
You know, I like Wreck-It Ralph and
I love her. Sure.
And because John C. Reilly's the voice of Wreck-It Ralph, I think.
Yes, that's true. I don't know that I necessarily want to hear the audio of Mrs. Paranormal.
That's why I think it's funny
trying to get her
messed up.
Because like if she really lays on the accent, it's just like. No, oh God. And then that's terrible.
I know, it's messed up, right? But it's funny and it works for this.
It is funny and it works for this. And I do like that. And I think that they could have a good, like, sort of working relationship, a good romantic relationship. I think they could have kids and that their kids could be, fun playing along with flipping ghosts. I like that.
So I will give you this. And this is something you don't necessarily have to come up like right off the cuff. But if we're going to give them a fake third person who turns out as a ghost this whole time, start thinking about someone who you think, because there's the obvious choice of making it Will Ferrell, but I don't like that.
No, God, no.
Yeah, so
the Sherlock movie showed us that they shouldn't necessarily do everything together.
Yeah, they did Step Brothers. That was a lightning in a bottle. It's a terrible movie, but it's funny and everyone loves it.
I'm thinking of an actor, but I can't actually think of what character he actually played in anything or his name. Oh, shoot. This is frustrating. All right, let's move on and I'll keep thinking.
All right, so then the next person I have is Ma Plunkett.
Okay, so since we both went with Ruth Negga, I decided that her father was, ethnically Irish and that her mom would be black, so I went with Whoopi Goldberg, who has done ghost movies before.
Funny. I went Irish, and really? I went with Fiona Shaw.
Who has been
Fiona Shaw is Petunia Dursley in Harry Potter.
Okay.
She's also in Killing Eve. She's in Fleabag. You look her up and you'll be like, oh yeah, I've seen her in stuff before.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah,
She,
yeah.
co-
I saw her in my Google searches as well.
yeah, she's a good Irish actress. I think we would probably with makeup age her up a little bit,
Yeah.
and I think she'd just kind of be funny, can kind of play around as
Yeah.
Whoopi Goldberg. Honestly, it'd be funny to make Whoopi Goldberg the ghost that's paired with John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman. Because Whoopi Goldberg would be a funny ghost who doesn't know she's a ghost.
Yeah, when did Ghost come out? Like 86, 87?
Around this time, I should know. That's
Yeah,
that's like our episode 6 or 7 or something.
Oh man. Yeah, I mean, as far as being an elderly Irish, widow, hanging out in the countryside and trying to tell her daughter that, the ghosts are unhappy, dear. That makes sense. That fits.
Yeah. So then let's, unless you had someone else for the ghost haunting Malcolm and Marge, let's go with Whoopi Goldberg for that, because I think that's a great choice.
All right, sure. I mean, that kind of kills my casting for Plunkett Sr., though.
Why? Oh, I didn't cast Plunkett Sr. Tell me who you have for Plunkett Sr.
Oh, okay. I had Ciaran Hinds.
I don't know who that is.
He's in Game of Thrones as the King Beyond the Wall. He's in a ton of stuff. He was Caesar in HBO's Rome. He's the voice of one of the trolls in Frozen and Frozen 2. You've seen him in a ton of stuff. He's an Irish actor.
Okay,
his name is spelled Ciaran.
Yeah, I found him. So
You'll see him.
Because I don't have anyone for the father, that means we have to go with yours, which means we have to do Whoopi Goldberg and Ciaran Hinds.
I think Whoopi Goldberg would be really good at being like, oh yeah, the ghost, this and that, and here's this book, and like, you are just not paying attention to me, young lady. Da, 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 da.
I mean, that's not her brand at all, but I'm okay with it.
Well,
I mean, but I can also see Ma Plunkett getting high in the attic. That's her brand.
Easier to commune with spirits.
Yeah. So I'd send you this list ahead of time. I kind of just have like Hotel Assistant 1 and Hotel Assistant 2.
Yeah.
How many other townspeople did you cast?
I wanted to do more, but I ended up just doing 2 of them. Like, I wanted to come up with somebody for Katie and I wanted to come up with a singer for the girl who plays at the harp and does the song there.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, we need a whole cast of townspeople, so I'm perfectly happy. Let's go with both of yours and both of mine.
Okay, so I came up for Eamon. I went with Robert Sheehan, who has been most recently in Umbrella Academy as the one who sees ghosts, and was in the British production Misfits. You'll recognize him if you see him.
Oh yeah, he's great.
And then Chris O'Dowd, who I briefly considered for the Plunkett role.
I also briefly considered him for the Plunkett role, and then I did also eventually put him as my hotel assistant too. So I guess we'll go with 3. I also replaced Chris O'Dowd with Ruth Negga.
Oh, geez.
Wow.
Poor Chris
you need
O'Dowd.
An Irish actor. That's Chris O'Dowd.
Yeah.
That's so perfect.
Who is quite funny.
Yeah. He's very funny and like can kind of absolutely be kind of the assistant to Ruth Negga, just like running around. So yeah. Chris O'Dowd for sure. And so if go ahead.
Oh, if we do the thing where sort of like we exonerate Mary and her and Martin get to rest in peace eternally happily, and Jack and Sharon sort of rekindle their relationship, then there's an opportunity for the Plunkett character to perhaps find a relationship of her own with someone in the village. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. Who can say? But it's funny that you mentioned Sharon, because my other hotel assistant is Sharon Horgan.
All right.
From Catastrophe, This Way Up. She's also a very funny TV comedy actress, and she's Irish, and I thought she'd work well here.
Good. I like that.
Yeah, so we've got our 3 hotel townspeople assistants of all kinds. So I think that works out. So that leaves us with going back to Martin and figuring out a good, attractive Irishman for Martin Brogan. And we have our writer-directors.
Do we?
I do. So we talked a little
You
bit about this, but you kind of ran out of time. So I'm going to pitch mine, and if you like them, that's great. We'll go with them. And if you
okay?
don't like them, we'll see if we can come up with someone else. Sound
All
fair?
right. Sounds fair. Sounds fair.
So I wanted people who are very well versed in comedy and broad, lots and lots and lots of character kind of comedy, but
Mm-hmm.
and are able to serve all those different characters. But they also have kind of a love of the history of comedy, so they've probably seen this movie and like they themselves have been working in comedy for a really, really long time, but they've dipped into drama and kind of playing around with all of that. So I
Okay.
went with Michael Showalter and David Wayne, who are kind of most well known for Wet Hot American Summer, which I think was kind of the closest sort of comparison in terms of tone and variety of people to what we kind of want this movie to be.
That is accurate. And it feels like, this cast kind of feels like if Wet Hot American Summer had been made in the 80s, you could take a large portion of this cast and shove it into Wet Hot American Summer.
Basically. So that's kind of why I thought that, like, so I kind of had them be like the writer directors for this. And I kind of thought that that's what would work for this story.
Okay. I
Is that
like
fair?
that. That is fair.
I am now scrolling through a list of the 30 unbearably hot Irish men you should not miss out on. Number 1, Michael Fassbender. Number 2, Jamie Dornan.
Yeah, John Rhys Meyers. He's pretty good. Like he was Henry in The Tudors. He would also be a good choice, and I think he could be funnier than Jamie Dornan.
Yeah, we also have a guy named.
But then we would be running the risk of casting the man who played Henry VIII as the husband of the woman who played his daughter, Bloody Mary.
Oh, well, we can't do that.
That's weird. I don't want to do that. I don't like that.
That is weird. Then we have another actor who I don't specifically recognize named Aidan Turner. Who is Aidan Turner?
I don't recognize that name either.
He's 36.
I'm trying to.
So he's the right age. Apparently he's in Poldark, Being Human. He was in The Hobbit. Something called Desperate Romantics. Apparently he's a good love interest.
Okay. I mean, and that can work, like, if we want to sort of play that couple straight and just sort of not have them be zany, have them sort of have scary moments and romantic moments, then that can kind of work. I have no idea how funny he is. But
we could always just cut out the middleman and just make him Domhnall Gleeson.
That guy's funny. That guy's funny, and he would work. Yeah, Domhnall Gleeson.
Yeah.
I actually looked at having Domhnall Gleeson and Brendan Gleeson do Plunkett and Plunkett Senior. I was like, is that an idea? That's terrible. Don't do that.
I didn't want to pull in a Gleeson because I didn't use him. He was just in the last movie I talked about. So I'm like, he was in the last movie we talked about, which was Assassin's Creed. And then I'd used him in my Dune recasting. So I was all Gleasoned out.
All right. Domhnall Gleeson, I think, would be a much better fit because he's a great actor. He can be funny. He can definitely pull that off. And like, if we want that character to be funny, then he can do it. And he's more age appropriate than Colin Farrell.
And I think he's probably funnier than Jamie Dornan. Good.
Yes. Sorry, Jamie Dornan. You just don't seem funny in The Fall.
Yeah, that's all right. And I mean, because Shades of Grey is such a hootenanny. So that's our cast. Let me take you through High Spirits 2020. Peter Plunkett will be played by Ruth Negga. Jack will be Rami Youssef. Sharon will be Olivia Munn. Mary Plunkett will be Sarah Bolger. Martin Brogan will be Domhnall Gleeson. Brother Tony will be William Jackson Harper, with Miranda being Michelle Wolf. Malcolm and Marge are going to be John C. Reilly and Sarah Silverman, although we don't know who's haunting them yet. I'm sure that'll come up later. Grandma Plunkett is going to be Whoopi Goldberg. No. Pa Plunkett is going to be Ciarán Hinds. And our 3 hotel assistants are Sharon Horgan, Robert Sheehan, and Chris O'Dowd. And then all of us will be written and directed by Michael Showalter and David Wayne. That is High Spirits.
I like
Chris,
it.
you going to go see this movie?
I am absolutely going to see this movie. I am one of the people who's going to see it. It's going to be great. It's going to make
Yeah.
more than half its budget, unlike the 1988 film.
Yeah, it's too bad. But okay, fair enough. We did it. We remade the movie. Chris, tell everyone again about TMNT Minute and all the other things you'd like them to follow and look at.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is one of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Minute is one of the multitude of Movies by Minutes podcasts, which you can find on moviesbyminutes.com. We are hosted by duelinggenre.com, and you can find us on iTunes and Stitcher and wherever else it is you get podcasts. I don't know. I use Google Podcasts like a sucker. And we talk about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies 1 minute at a time. We've done 1 and 2. What the? Hey, shut up, Google. My phone heard me and tried to chime in helpfully. You're a bad phone.
It heard you insult Google.
Yeah, it did. That was weird because she doesn't usually do that. Oh my goodness, I just gendered my phone. So we've done the first 2 films. We've talked with a number of people involved in the production. We've had interviews with the director of the first film, Steve Barron, the composer, John Dupre. We've talked to the Francois Chow, Shredder in the second movie. We've talked to Robbie Rist, the voice of Michelangelo. We've had we've had a number of conversations with people involved in making those films. We expect to have a number more, and then we will be doing the 3rd Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie 1 minute at a time, even if it doesn't deserve it, very soon. And I think that for entertainment you don't have to pay for, it's pretty good.
Lovely. And if you want people to follow you on Instagram or Twitter?
On Twitter, I am at chris.oconnoriv. On Instagram, let me just check my Instagram. I think my Instagram is, stick, STICK, CANTC. Stick can't see. And it's a joke because I'm legally blind.
Fun! If you want to follow me on Twitter, I'm at Sam Gasch, SAMGASCH, or you can follow the podcast, which is Ideal Remake, on both Twitter and Instagram, but mostly Instagram. Or you can join the podcast on Facebook at Ideal Remake or Ideal Remake Podcast, which I think is how this whole episode got started, because I think you commented on something on Facebook. And
yes, I did.
It's amazing. Perfect.
Yeah.
Love it. And it could happen to you. Maybe.
Comment.
If you want to
comment.
Yeah. If you want to take the time and do a good deed for today, feel free to go on Apple Podcasts and leave a positive 5-star review for either TMNT Minute or for Ideal Remake. Either one of us would be very appreciative of that.
We would.
And so that's all I got. So I will end with this. Chris, you've seen this movie a bunch of times. What's your favorite quote from High Spirits?
Oh, shoot. I knew this part was coming. Oh. And this is a thing that's not going to be, well, it could be in the remake. There is a God.
Just Peter O'Toole staring out into the middle distance. There is a God. Love it. Chris, thank you so much for being my guest this episode.
It's been a lot of fun. Thank you very much for having me.
Need a glass of water? Need a bathroom run before anything?
I just did that. I'm going to finish this Kira, this Japanese beer, and then I'm going to get on to my there it is, Jameson. Because of course.
So you're taking this High Spirits episode seriously. Ah!